Israel assists PNG with agricultural technology. Bulolo Landowners blame Works Department for floods. And Lae City Dwellers make it to finals of Champions League.
This is National EMTV News with Meriba Tulo.
A very good evening. Thank you for joining us. This is Sunday's news. Agriculture has been listed as a priority for the O'Neill-Able government as well as provincial and district level governments. Agriculture is included in the third medium-term development plan as a potential sector that can contribute immensely to the economy. And Israel, a country ahead in agricultural technology, is looking to assist PNG by offering scholarships in this field. Adelaide's Sirox Curry reports.
Apart from PNG's Christian tie to Israel, agriculture is another common factor. Israel, a desert oasis, leads the world in agriculture technology. Some of the technology seen here in Port Moresby at the 9 Mile Farm, which is owned by an Israeli company. Now the Israel government wants to provide opportunities for 10 students to study for a year in Israel, an initiative they hope can build the agriculture sector in PNG. The 10 students will study at Arava Institute, where the agriculture production provides 60% of Israel's export to Europe and other parts of the world.
Thousands from developing countries all around the world, from Asia, from Africa, from Latin America, spend a year like this in Israel and go back to their countries with all that advantage. So I really wish that this is going to be successful. And as I said before, if this is successful, it can be expanded for many more.
The scholarship will also provide fortnightly funding to the student in the hope the students can return.
Coming back with a lot of money, capital, that they earned during those months, because everything is covered. The accommodations, the meals, everything. So they don't really need to spend that money. This money that they are saving allows them to open like a small enterprise. Like to buy even a small land and to start growing with using their advantage in the market.
And be able to venture into their own agriculture business. Adelaide Sirox Kari, National EMTV News.
Landowners of the Wafi Golpu project have raised concerns on the lack of awareness on incorporated land groups in the area. This concern was raised yesterday during the distribution of NID cards to members of the 4 clans under Hengambu. ILG forms were also distributed during that time, however, raised confusion among landowners.
Yesterday, members of the 4 clans Elmun, Denmago, Guago and Tuko received the NID cards and certificates. The Bulolo District Administration funded this initiative to prepare landowners to work towards getting the ILG certificates. Bulolo District Administrator Lae Gumbelek said it was appropriate that ILG forms be distributed at the same time. However, a landowner, Kailes Geo, said trying to get an ILG certificate might raise disputes among the existing clans.
Suppose you may go into the one on clan tribes boundary now, can give him some plan, Bellevi, long one plan clan by cross pipe or conflict of interest, can delay him to this development on this project.
He is appealing for more time for awareness. However, according to the Registrar of ILGs, Iruna Regokila, enough awareness has been done since the ILG Act was passed in 2009.
For the last 8 years, approximately, when the new law came into effect. And for them to say that they are not fully aware, there has been enough dissemination of information.
Bulolo District Administrator Lae Gumbelek explained that NID and ILGs go hand in hand. He said both would allow for the beneficiaries of Wafi Golpu project to get equal share.
They need to prove that they are really the legitimate citizens of Yanta and Engamu.
Meanwhile, Mr. Gumbelek said only some got their NID cards due to technical issues. He said the others would do so once the problem was fixed. Charlene Eri, National MTV News, Lae.
Kumalu River in the Bulolo district has been making headlines over the years due to its disastrous flooding, causing havoc to people living nearby. For over 15 years, the Bulolo Landowners Association has written to the Department of Works. However, their petition has fallen on deaf ears. Association President Okam Sakaileas told MTV News that it is not nature that has caused these floods. It was purely man-made, and the National Department of Works is accountable for this.
The landowners claim that due to the construction of the control dam upstream of the Kumalu River by the Department of Works and Implementation, the damming and diversion of the stream has caused chaos.
Desta wara Kumalu sa flood na planting man o inside long country or sa to kolsem desta am terror wara even long environment report ori go working report long an ya uli talk all man believe kolsem emi terror wara emi no terror wara o emi no nature desta damage now works working long people ya emba stop permanent emol bagrapim strong long people now bagrapim strong long desta I way too.
They were promised a part payment from the Department of Works for Kumalu River damages. However, to date, nothing has been done.
Na secretary ferry me long lawyer na lawyer talk. Lawyer talk also member referring over secretary but referring go kan long attorney general. Na attorney general can but referring go long NEC. This la and making me play bad because passing through minister talking just releasing liquid berkol money along all people. Now like see me play long way more.
In 1999, the Department of Works and Implementation contracted the Chinese Overseas Engineering Company, also known as KOVAC, to build a controlled dam. The controlled dam was built upstream of the Kumalu River to protect the double-lane bridge from being washed away from flooding, as construction for the bridges had already started in 1997.
Walking more also, there's la dam, you plan can walking. Because there's la dam, so they said with me plan. You plan walking, there's la dam, there's la stone, you plan walking, dam, yeah, and so they stop him now. Diabetes while I got long, all place lo me plan. All place me plan, support sem na. You plan brookim, don't walk him them. Me plan bagarap. So me plan talk no gat. Me plan talk no gat long walking, there's la dam. That's all you talk. There's la dam, but I'm waterfall na, slowing down current as all. Or some me plan long, now you go ahead, now walking, there's la dam.
However, in 2006, the dam burst due to high suspended matter collected and accumulated after the dam was built.
Pero now I'm over the standing blowing bagarap. A place all the time bagarap. One time, what is in a village? Coconut, beetle nut, livestock houses, plate stores, and over the desla plus many more in bagarap. Now cost long desla and long time. So
due to constant requests from landowners, in 2018, a team from the Conservation and Environment Protection Authority were tasked to do the environment impact assessment to verify the environmental damage claims. The team found that the claims were true and provided valid documents for the Landowner Association to pursue their case.
Secretariat, I'm been writing long and talk. I'm been bagarap. Na secretary talk, MTT na working flyover bridge can long kumaruara. Or some na emi talk, and I'll be narapla 3 million can I come. I want 5 million. And putting long yellow, I'll be more people.
Mr. Sakalia says the landowners are tired of not being heard.
So me pressing out long government now. Same Basil Prime Minister, you plan now by stepping along working because anytime me plan by passing road enough long government by letting me pass them. So that's la long now. Me like talking said long country more be manning to Masarem. That's la long now. Website come up in.
Lillian Supera Kinea, National MTV News.
2 people are reported dead and a pregnant mother is among 15 others rescued when the boat capsized in Manus last Sunday. The 2 deceased have been identified as a 3-year-old boy and a 43-year-old father of 3. The 17 were returning from Kali village after the burial when their boat capsized between Sori and Rehet villages. They had in their possession a 44-gallon drum filled with fuel, which spilled and burnt some of the survivors who tried to swim ashore. Fortunately, a young boy in the group swam quickly to shore and alerted people at the Lohang logging camp, who assisted and rescued the passengers on board. You're watching in National MTV News this Sunday. We'll have more after these messages. Don't go away. Welcome back to National MTV News. 2 reserve police officers are among 3 men charged for impersonating police officers and extorting a woman and her son in Port Moresby. Police say they demanded 2,000 kina in cash from the mother and her son after they discovered that they were carrying 2 boxes of mustard. The 3 men are identified as Kingston Kenny, Armstrong Ralda and Joel Jackson. They were arrested and charged after an interrogation with Port Moresby police and the ID cards of the 2 reservists confiscated. Police say the 3 men blackmailed the woman and she deposited 800 kina into one of the suspects' account. However, the bank was notified and the money was transferred back to the woman's account. The remaining 500 kina was found in one of the suspects' waste bank as held as a court exhibit. Moving on, over 7,000 residents flooded Murray Barracks at 4 a.m. this morning to participate in the launch of the Active City Development Program. It started with an 8-kilometer walk from the barracks to Paga Hill Ring Road, where the program was officially launched by NCD Governor Paul Sparkop. Governor Sparkop said the program was making tangible differences in the communities across the city and the whole country as well. He commended the residents for reclaiming the safe street feeling, calling on other MPs to replicate the program in their districts. Governor Sparkop also announced that this year the program will be even better. Among other different programs, some of the activities include youth empowerment and transformation programs, community yoga classes, Sunday walks from Murray Barracks, Active City in schools, and the Bomana Prison project. Turning overseas now, ocean pollution and climate change are issues the world is facing. In New Zealand, there is now growing pressure to do more to prosecute litterbugs.
Plastics, fishing lines, old tyres, cigarette butts, all clogging our oceans and beaches.
Pretty much you name it, we've found it out here.
You threw that down on the street somewhere probably in the centre of Auckland without regard to what's going to happen to it. You know, that's been in the sea probably for days or weeks.
This group's taken on the job of cleaning up Auckland's harbours and foreshore, including on places like Rangitoto Island. It says it's frustrating people don't seem to realise where their rubbish ends up.
An unfortunate situation, but that's really our job, is to try and awaken people to the issue so people can understand what they drop on the land is going to end up in the sea.
We've got to stop people treating their environment as a rubbish dump and discarding their cigarette butts, discarding their plastic cups and their drink bottles, because all of it ends up back in the ecosystem.
Every day, teams of sea cleaners head out into Auckland's harbour. There's even a wait list of volunteers. Since 2002, 65 million litres of rubbish has been collected, and that amount isn't diminishing.
Consumers and the government are being urged to clean up their act.
People need to change their habits. They need to be thinking about the products they're purchasing. They need to be making sure that whatever rubbish they do create is disposed of correctly.
We have a litter act that's more enforceable because the present one isn't. But we've got to do things like a container deposit scheme.
Conservation Minister Eugenie Sage admits the Litter Act does need an overhaul, but there are no plans to introduce new legislation this year. She says she will in the future look at whether container deposit schemes could be introduced in New Zealand and how that would work. Those who are trying to keep our oceans clean would love to one day be out of a job.
It's for future generations that this work is being done.
For now, they'll keep trying to turn the tide against the litterbugs.
The Pope made headlines recently when he visited the United Arab Emirates, but news from the Vatican now is that a former cardinal from the priesthood has been dismissed over sex crimes.
Theodore McCarrick, once the Archbishop of Washington, was found guilty by the Vatican of sexually abusing children and adults. The 88-year-old was also found guilty of soliciting for sex while hearing confession and was sentenced to a life of prayer and penance. Pope Francis ordered the defrocking, which is the most severe punishment the Catholic Church can impose.
You're with Sunday's News. We'll continue with more after these messages. Welcome back to the news. The war in Syria is in its final days as US-backed Syrian forces say victory over the terror group is imminent. However, IS is still in control of one last village.
The final battle is in its final days, with ISIS pinned down to an area of around a quarter of a square mile. That's the update we got today from the commander of the U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces, Shia Farat. He said the final ISIS village of Bakus Vakani had not yet fallen, but his ground forces were holding fire and moving forward cautiously because so many civilians remain trapped as human shields. Military officials here say they severely underestimated the number of civilians inside that village when they launched the offensive to crush the last remnants of the so-called caliphate 1 week ago. First estimated to be around 1,500 people, more than twice that many have since flooded out this week, including many ISIS families. Hundreds of ISIS fighters reportedly surrendered this week, of the 450 or so militants who were thought to be making a last stand. But there's no fighting in here. And when we last visited the front line on Thursday, we found SDF fighters on a more relaxed footing since the final offensive began. Apart from sporadic gunfire, a relative calm suggested that the brutal last battle might be coming to an end. Today, Commander Farat vowed to broadcast to the world in the coming days the military end of ISIS. Now, he stressed military end because even U.S.-led coalition officials have said ISIS will remain a threat as an underground insurgency, which raises important questions about exactly when America's 2,000 troops will withdraw.
In an Australian first, Jetstar is using virtual reality to help train staff in one of its hangars. The program took 2 years to develop and aims to help workers with advanced equipment.
The Boeing 787 is one of the world's most advanced passenger planes. And keeping them in the air requires expertise on the ground. Now, engineers at Jetstar have a new tool to navigate their way around the complex machinery.
It's a little bit like walking through the hangar with an instruction book floating in front of your face, I guess.
The airline has spent 2 years developing a virtual reality replica of its Tullamarine hangar.
So now we're standing in front of the aircraft,
allowing it to conduct familiarisation training on its fleet of 787 and Airbus jets.
This ultimately means we can do training without having to have the aircraft in the hangar.
While simulators have been helping train pilots for decades, this system is an Australian first. It includes manual tasks to ensure trainees develop the right reflexes.
They have to place the wheel chocks in the right spot. So what we've done there is created an assessment where they have to physically pick up a wheel chock and place it underneath the wheels.
It's estimated the headsets will save the airline 300 hours of aircraft ground time each year, worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Jetstar expects to put around 150 staff through this training every year, but members of the public will have the chance to try the technology at the Avalon Air Show next month.
The airline's now working with parent company Qantas to expand the use of virtual reality even further.
Into the future, who knows, we might be using other things like augmented reality and so on to really help people do their maintenance and do their everyday job.
A junkyard in America's South has now become an unlikely tourist attraction. Old Cassidy is a so-called car graveyard with the largest collection of vintage American vehicles in the world.
Hiding off a highway in rural Georgia sits an unlikely tourist attraction.
Thank you for being here with us on this blessed day.
A museum like no other, a forest of forgotten cars.
This is a 32-acre piece of art.
Dean Lewis was born and raised in this junkyard. In the 70s, he took it over.
And wound up gathering up about 42, 4,400 cars, all American.
Fords, Chevys, Lincolns, all built before 1972.
I hadn't drove it in 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
Been sitting right there. I can't get it out.
Yeah, exactly. Got too much stuff. But for Dean, too much is never enough. He's still buying.
If I average one a month, that's doing good because you don't find them. The ones out there is already fixed up and they're $40,000 and $50,000 cars.
In fact, the cars Dean does have would be worth a fortune in parts alone. But he's found another way of making a dime. This swampland, now swamped in cars, has become a sought-after backdrop for photographers. The cars parked in the forest, now a part of it, attracting millions of followers online and thousands in person.
You spend the money just to take pictures of rust and broken glass.
What started as a labour of love is now a major moneymaker, and quite appropriately, the main attraction here was owned by a man named Cash.
Hollywood made a movie here in South Georgia. Johnny Cash was a sheriff in the movie.
And that's not the only star attraction.
Elvis's last car, the last car he bought.
But for Dean, his favourite car will always be his first.
I got a 1948 Ford that I bought when I was 18 years old. I was still in high school.
What would be trash, now a national treasure.
To New Zealand, and as a show of just how popular the Maori language has become, performances at next week's festival will be translated into Mandarin. Meet the Chinese national tasked with the job.
Meet 64-year-old Lidu Gong. Born and raised in China, he speaks Mandarin and English, but his real passion is Te Reo Māori. Gong started learning Māori 8 years ago, partly to help with insomnia.
I thought, yes, repeating Maori words would be help me as a serve as sleeping pills. But it proved to be a miracle.
If he looks familiar, you might recognise him from this Vogel's ad. He says Mandarin is for at home, English is for work, and Māori is for spirituality.
I believe in Wairua, the spirituality, and learning Te Reo has opened my mind to the spiritual world. If I haven't learned Te Reo and got familiar with the Maori values and cultures, I wouldn't be the same person now.
Gong is a linguist who works as a librarian at Te Wānanga o Aotearoa in Auckland. He says the language has become more and more popular in the Chinese community. Gong has spoken on many marae and even teaches Māori to a group of Chinese. To connect the cultures even more, performances at the National Kapahaka Festival, aired on Māori television next week, will be translated into Mandarin by Lidu Gong. Gong has even performed kapahaka himself. He says Te Reo Māori could be the key to improving relations between China and New Zealand.
It's not the money that decides everything. We should find something that is more valuable, that is more from inside out. And cultural exchange can enhance that.
And if you don't speak Mandarin or Māori, there'll be an English translation too.
You're watching Sunday's News. We go for a break now. When we come back, some sporting updates in Fukai Sports. Don't go away.
Fukai Sports.
Welcome to Fukai Sports. To begin with football, the Lae City Dwellers have advanced to the final group stages of the Oceania's Premier Club Football competition after a 1-1 draw against Hengene Sport yesterday.
Lae City Dwellers from Papua New Guinea have secured their passage to the final 8 in Oceania's Premier Club Football competition as group runners-up after their match against Hygiene Sport ended in a 1-1 draw. Hosts Hygiene scored in the 9th minute when Bryce D8's lovely touch and control allowed him to beat the keeper with a well-executed shot to the delight of the home crowd. Falling behind caused no panic for the Papua New Guineans, who conceded early goals in all of their 3 matches of the tournament, and Peter Gunamba's troops were back on level terms in the 24th minute, courtesy of Nigel Dabinyaba's 4th goal of the competition. An absorbing open contest developed for the remainder of the match, with both sides creating clear-cut chances only to be denied by poor finishing, desperate goal line clearances and a number of top-class saves. Despite countless attempts on goal, up until the dying minutes, neither side was able to break the deadlock, forcing them to settle for a share of the points. Meanwhile, Lae City Dwellers will find out their quarter-final destiny following the official draw at the OFC's Auckland headquarters on March 5th. Coach Peter Gunamba is confident his side will be ready for any challenge ahead. Fideli Sukina, National EMTV Sports.
To football abroad and friends, family, colleagues and football fans mourn the loss of Argentina's striker Emiliano Sala at his funeral overnight. Just days after signing for Cardiff City, Sala and his pilot were killed in a plane crash in the English Channel last month.
Into his boyhood club, San Martin de Progreso, they filed. Inside the body of Emiliano Sala. A chance to say farewell to the footballer, however hard that might be. Almost 4 weeks since the most famous son of this small Argentinian village was lost. It's something I do not understand and accept, this close friend says, because it hurts so much. The village died, my village died, on the 21st of January. The 28-year-old was Cardiff City's most expensive signing. Their manager, Neil Warnock, among the club's representatives here, all paying their respects to a player who would never pull on the club shirt.
It's brought tears to our eyes, really. You look around the whole village here, and it's like the whole village is part of it. I've never known anything like it.
Cardiff, as general, feel very sad of the incident. And today I think it's good for the family to have some closure.
It may take a year for an investigation to conclude why the single-seater aircraft crashed into the sea near Guernsey. The wreckage and Sala's body were found after a private search. The body of pilot David Ibbotson has yet to be located. A banner was left by one of the hundreds attending the public vigil. Another brought the local club strip to place by his side. Emiliano Sala may never have got to play in the Premier League, but he will forever be held here in the highest regard.
Don't go anywhere, we'll have more of Fukai Sports after these messages. Stay tuned.
Fukai Sports.
Welcome back to Fukai Sports. To Rugby League now, day 3 of the Pomarafel MRDC Nines featured a positive and disappointment for one club in particular, the Hohola Flies. The men's team too registered a win, while the women were left disappointed after their own mishap caused their forfeit.
Hohola Flies Team 2 are favourites in their pool after securing another win, this time against invitational side Sportstock Stallions, in the 3rd day of competition in the Pomarafel MRDC Nines. In its 3rd day, the teams obviously pained over the past 2 days of competition. Nevertheless, it was an entertaining afternoon of rugby league. The game was scoreless in the first 9 minutes of the half. Defensively, the teams held on and errors didn't help slowing the game's momentum. The second half showed why the Flies were a formidable team. Straight from kickoff, young Joe Susuve striding 50 meters for an easy 4-pointer, which went unconverted. The game progressed on with much anticipation by the crowd, the final try coming from Junior Arova, the Flies 8-0 winners. The female Flies didn't have much luck in their game, a technical blunder causing the match to be forfeited, handing the win over to their opponents, the Dobo Warriors. The Flies women didn't have Malamak on their team sheet, the woman that scored 2 tries. The Warriors scoreless handed the win, instead the Flies buzzing off, disappointed. Fideli Sukina, National EMTV Sports.
To rugby union abroad now, European country Georgia is rising as a top rugby nation, and the Kiwi is overseeing the Georgian team as a second tier before this year's World Cup. A rise to 12th in the world ranking has them campaigning hard.
In Tbilisi, there are 2 castles. the 4th century Narikala fortress, and a Willy Wonka-style mansion owned by Georgia's richest man, Bidzina Ivanishvili. A man rarely seen in public, but a man on a mission to tap into Georgia's passion for rugby.
All our history is about fighting and about wars, and it's very similar to our spirit. So that's why Georgian people love rugby, watching rugby, because rugby is about war 15 against 15.
Ivanishvili's invested millions in building new stadiums around the country, while the national team now uses purpose-built indoor and outdoor training facilities. They have an industrial kitchen with full-time chefs and tailor-made nutritional programs and on-site accommodation for players and coaches. And they're seeing results. Their ranking has steadily climbed over the past decade, with the top 10 now in sight.
We improved a little bit, every game, but we need more big games against Tier 1 nation.
The next step for Georgian rugby is the big question. They are the most improved nation in Europe, so could they be brought into an expanded Six Nations? Journalist Luka Chichua is struggling to see how that can happen anytime soon.
It's a private tournament and it's held annually, and everyone is happy with it, and nobody is going to fix what's not broken.
And their coach, Kiwi Milton Haig, worries that without a path to the Six Nations, Georgia's growth may have hit a brick wall.
We've had sort of like a massive spike of our progress in the last 8 years, and we've sort of plateaued a little bit, and that's due to the fact that we don't play enough of those top tier games.
Yet the man in the Willy Wonka mansion remains hopeful of buying Georgia's golden ticket into rugby's elite, but he's facing long odds.
Still in rugby, the Crusaders held on to edge out the Blues in round 1 of Super Rugby. The Blues came close to knocking over the defending champions in a 24-22 loss.
A fresh face with the chance to start the new Blues era with the biggest scalp.
It's on target, is it? No!
It was tough on 20-year-old debutant Harry Plummer, and Crusaders coach Scott Robertson admits his team was a bit lucky.
We were poor at times. It's probably reflective of our last 2 games. In our openers of the year, we've been like that. We've managed to win a tough battle.
He gives it away to Hall.
Both sides had their moments. The Crusaders were up 12-3, and the Blues had impressive blindside Tom Robinson in the bin after 26 minutes, after a penalty try for a collapsed maul. The Blues bounced back and grabbed the lead. The Crusaders scored the next 2 tries. But consistent breakdown infringements meant Ben Fennell went to the bin, and the Blues closed within 2 through Augustine Pulu. However, their old habits die hard. A dreadful decision to run blindside from Pulu, and the home side had lost it.
The frustrations of maybe some bad decisions and some bad execution?
Yeah, a little bit of panic. I think both teams had opportunities to grab the game, and we definitely had ours.
Although Robertson saw plenty of promise in the Blues.
The right people in the right paces, and you could see the clear game structure.
The Hurricanes also watched on.
Foley, and this one is out to the left.
As a missed penalty gave them a 2019 away victory against the Waratahs.
Can't miss much. Bernard, I think Geordie might have been next to me, and we were just telling him, please pull it, bro, please pull it.
Trailing 19-10 early in the second half. The Canes were sometimes sloppy, and a Duplessis Karifi elbow cost them a try. But he made up for it with what turned out to be the match winner.
And they break away!
Yeah, they showed a lot of character, but both teams would be pretty disappointed with their displays, I would say.
Still, like the Crusaders, the Canes would prefer not to rely on opposition kickers to hold on to wins.
And that ends Fukai Sports for this evening. We'll have the weather details for the next 24 hours when we return.
Fukai Sports. Fukai Sports.
The weather details were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
A look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours. We begin in the southern region. A shower or two expected in Daru with a top temperature of 32 degrees and fine weather expected in Port Moresby. The same as well for Kerma, Alotau and Popondetta. To the Momase region, mostly fine and 32 degrees for Lae, fine and 27 for Wau, fine and 32 for Madang, Wewak and Vanimo. To the New Guinea Islands region, fine weather expected in Loranga with a top of 32 degrees and fine for Kaviang, Kokopo and Rabaul, fine and 32 degrees as well for Kimbe, and fine and 32 degrees for Buka for the next 24 hours. And finally in the Highlands region, mostly cloudy for Mount Hagen over the next 24 hours and a top of 25 degrees, a low of 11 degrees, 26 degrees and mostly cloudy for Goroka and a minimum of 12 degrees, mostly cloudy for Kundiawa with a top of 26, a low of 12 degrees, mostly cloudy for Mindi as well, a top of 25, a low of 11 degrees, and Wabeg can expect mostly cloudy weather over the next 24 hours, a top of 25, a minimum temperature of 11 degrees over the next 24 hours. A look at the forecast for small ships, and there is a renewal of a strong wind warning for all coastal waters. A strong northwesterly surge of 25 to 34 knots are expected to continue for the next 24 hours, causing rough sea and high sea waves. All small craft and boats are advised to take the necessary precautions before and after going out to sea. To look at the forecast for small ships for the next 24 hours, waters of southern PNG Indonesian border through Torres Strait and Daru to Kiwai Island to Kerma, Yule Island, and waters of Samurai Island to Cape Vogel to Finschhafen, sea 0.5 to 1.5 meters. The waters of Manus and its western group of islands, seas 2 to 2.5 meters. Waters of Hood Point to Samurai Island, and waters of eastern and western Milne Bay Islands, and waters of Finschhafen through Vitias and Dampier Strait to CSC Island to Long Island to Madang, Bogia, Wewak, Aitape, Vanimo, and the northern PNG Indonesian border, and with waters of New Britain to New Island and Bougainville, seas 2.5 to 3 meters. And finally, a look at the ocean forecast for PNG areas. The Coral Sea sees moderate to rough with northwest to southwesterly winds at 20 to 34 knots. Solomon Sea sees moderate to rough with northwest to southwesterly winds at 20 to 34 knots. Bismarck Sea sees rough with northwesterly winds at 25 to 34 knots. And the Pacific Ocean sees rough with westerly winds at 25 to 34 knots.
The weather details were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
And that's the way it is today, Sunday the 17th of February 2019. On behalf of the news team right around the country, have a pleasant working week. Good night.